Welcome to Beyond the Dragon, where we explore indie tabletop role-playing games and their design to inspire you to play them or take what you like for your own creations. Hi there, my name's Oscar C. Tango.
And my name is Sun.
We're both tabletop game designers and professional game masters who love TTRPGs. Today we will be discussing Crowns. Crowns is a Mausritter descendant published by Rhys Searles of Ward Against Evil on December 16th of 2020. Crowns is a fantasy role-playing game for 2 to 10 players, although the website says 2 to 200, where players seek to bring riches, coins, called crowns, or their equivalent, from the wilderness and bring them back to settlements, the last bastions of civilization. The game's core rules are free, while the art version of the game costs $8, with the game clocking in at 44 pages. So, Sun, what do you think of Crowns?
I really like it. I would definitely use lots of parts from it, but because of freedom of time, I wouldn't play the system wholly. Since we're going to talk about it, Crowns being a descendant of Mausritter, but then changing things up, I would prefer to use Mausritter, but I still think Crowns is really nice. I think Crowns sets out what it wanted to do quite well, providing ample support to run a dungeon-crawling, loot-stealing fantasy old-school game. I really loved the support and guidance for settlements and resting. Makes me want to give more time to those moments, and the dungeoneering procedure is really great. I'm very curious as to how this plays, since we haven't played it.
I have, actually. I've run it.
Your own, I'd definitely like to hear your thoughts on it when we get there. But I'm definitely curious as how it feels to me when it plays, with making your own maps, the dungeon actions, and the reintroduction of tier hit rolls, and the like.
Yeah, before we read Into the Odd, and before I had played Mausritter, Crowns was, without question, my favorite Mark of the Odd game. After reading Into the Odd, and after actually playing Mausritter, it is tied with Mausritter at, for favorite Mark of the Odd game. 2-hit is not a significant change. How do I put this? 2-hit does not hinder Crowns. It is added in for a specific mechanic which I actually quite like. I don't think it was necessary, and I prefer auto-hit. That is like, Crowns has 2 criticisms I have for it that knock it out of first place, and par with Mausritter. Crowns has a couple of standouts. Its dungeoneering section for me, and then the fact that Crowns has feats are both such big standouts. They elevate Crowns to above Mausritter and then roll to hit, and another thing we'll talk about in my criticisms, knock it down to on par with Mausritter.
Yeah, like, I didn't want to put so much weight on the 2-hit aspect, but because it's going down the family tree of Into the Odd, it's one of those things where it adds back in, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's curious.
During my reading today, I realized this is a Mausritter crossed with Knave game. I mean, I can't say for sure whether or not Rhys Searles actually has ever read or played Knave, but let's talk about the main engine and then I'll justify this statement. Engine-wise, we've said it's a Mark of the Odd game. It's descended from Mausritter, and I say that because it uses Mausritter's inventory, and what it changes almost arguably knocks it out of Mark of the Odd, like the lack of 2-hit. But it is a d20 roll under. There are 4 stats instead of 3, and roll to hit, as we've mentioned. Enemy stat blocks have been simplified significantly in an interesting way, although not all of that is something that I'm a fan of. Yeah. So, one of the main interesting things is the stats for Crowns are Coordination, Senses, Vitality, and Will. Coordination is effectively Dexterity, and it is used for melee attacks. Senses is effectively Wisdom, and is used for ranged attacks, as well as detecting traps and the like, and danger in general, stopping ambushes. And Vitality is effectively constitution, and will is a combination of wisdom and intelligence used for spell casting and avoiding fear and the like. And it's specifically senses that makes me think, oh, that's like Knave, where you use wisdom to shoot things.
Okay, I see. Well, questing beast was attributed in the uh, very end. Not Knave specifically, but questing beast, the creator of Knave.
Yeah, that's not surprising. But yeah, no, that is the main engine. So in terms of the actual core gameplay discussion, I have some things, and then I have a very detailed combat overview. So I would like you to go first.
Okay. So how I'm going at it, I immediately was thinking, okay, what sells me on this game being useful for, treasure seeking and the like? Immediately, and the thing that if I forget everything about Knave, but remembered one thing, I would remember the dungeoneering chapter.
Hmm.
The procedure of dungeoneering provides a clear example about what this game is about. Going into dangerous places and extracting treasure provides a clean and structured way of doing that. For those that are aware of old school and all that, you have your 10-minute dungeon turns, which allows each player to, do a dungeon action. For this, you need to have your hands free. Like it specifically states, you need to have your hands free to do these dungeon actions. So some members may want to not do a dungeon action and stay on guard, have their weapons out and the like, because you might fuck up and then makes a noise and a monster comes knocking. And after or before this one dungeon action, you can then move from to a small room or move from a small room. It provides, I think, a really nice, in a very reductive way, a gameplay loop kind of like combat. You've got, your action, you've got your move and your action. You can take each turn, and every player can take their turn, and eventually, the rounds tick around. You'll be making noise rolls and the like, and ticking down your light. But with like it calls out when you're searching. It specifically states when you search a 15 by 15-foot space, which is the smallest space for small rooms. And it calls out to hiding rules. So when a monster comes in, like, do you have space to hide and all that? And light, talking about how, wall sconces and braziers, you can quickly light it with a quick action. So it's like a great call out to me, immediately making me think of those types of situations. Like the fact that that stuff is brought up makes me go, oh, okay. Then that's probably something that I want to think about. And then talks about openings, like, doors or portals that aren't traversable yet. You need to get at it with a pickaxe or a shovel or a hammer. And, it makes you think of dungeons that aren't just doors and corridors with maybe a pit trap between. And these openings are things you might need to return back to with some tools or extra hands for safety. I think it provides a really great procedure and guidance on dungeoneering without getting too complicated.
Yeah, no, overall, if you don't count wilderness and travel as a part of dungeoneering, it's like 2 pages.
It's 2 pages, nice and simple. It doesn't go, it like explains just enough that you can extrapolate beyond that. It's really good stuff.
It is.
What about you?
So as for me, one of the, I mean, I agree in terms of the dungeoneering, but actually jumping off of that, the whole GMing section to me just stands out because so the GMing section starts out with telling you about how to GM crowns, and it says, oh, present a living world, here's how you do social interactions, only make players roll if they're trying to avoid consequences. Perception checks are to, avoid consequences for like ambushes, because danger should always be foreshadowed clearly, because one of the things it should be telegraphed. A potentially fun moment is the players admitting we're walking into an ambush before getting ambushed and then losing the fight. An upsetting moment is the players getting ambushed without warning and then losing. Don't pull punches, but let people know what's coming. And I would say that on the Mausritter like lethality scale, Crowns is a little bit more in the player's side in terms of. This is interesting because Into the Odd is very like just murder your players, who cares. Mausritter has some things that I would say are a little bit like much gentler with players. Crowns is arguably less lethal than that, but it's also meant to have you potentially fight more due to its more old school style. But no, it has like a GMing section for like when should you ask for saves, here's your like best practices for running the game, here are some advised consequences if you don't want to murder your players, kidnap them. Here's the section on how to make adventures with like different phases and what kind of things are happening with that for your players to go through, including an extraction section. This game focuses on getting you out of the dungeon, which is something that not a lot of games do. The closest we have to that is the return roll from Five Torches Deep. But Crown says, oh no, if you are leaving a dungeon, it should still be dangerous. If you were like, a dungeon might take multiple dives to clear, but once you've cleared it and have done the climactic situation like a boss fight or a ritual that was stopped, special monsters or new traps should become activated only after the climax. And so that's for used like cleaning out the dungeon, like going into a base of operations, like turning it into a base of operations, I should say. New threats might have arisen, ancient locks or doors that players couldn't access before may open new pathways. It's very interesting.
It
but
makes
it can
the
collapse.
dungeon feel kind of like the older era where dungeons are more mythic and weird, not just underground rooms.
Yeah. And then, it goes into dungeoneering, including sections on like traps, which should always be. Traps are kind of interesting in this one compared to both Mausritter and Into the Odd. Unless players are moving recklessly, traps should be hinted at during exploration, and then traps are used as puzzles and hazards. When a trap is triggered, roll a d6, and only on a 5 to 6 does it go off because it's so old. And then to disarm a trap, it's a coordination save, +2 if they have helpful tools. And then the trap goes off if they fail, and that makes a turn, or a dungeon turn. And then, if you're reckless, you make noise, you run and sprint around, you bring unwanted attention, you don't detect traps. And then, there's a whole thing about, like, the whole dungeoneering thing, like hiding, stopping. There's something for working openings, like forcing open doors, stopping, like covering, opening up cracks in walls, fixing rock falls and overgrowth, with amounts of work needed and how many turns that takes and how people can help as a group. Wilderness travel, map making with this requires paper and is a massive pain in the ass to do if you don't have physical dice, as I will tell you from my experiences using Tailspire to generate random maps for crowns.
No, definitely. The GM section is really nice. For it's similar in the Mark of the Odd aspects of the core principles, but it's great for a new beginner, and like you'll be able to look at this and then go to basically any Mark of the Odd game and still basically any game you'll be set with using this if you don't want to use other things. It's really nice and helps get you into that mindset. And speaking of the wilderness travel, that's my second point. To get to the dungeon and leaving the dungeon, the wilderness bit. And how wilderness travel is done by default is like a point crawl type of style. If you don't know what point crawl is, basically the more significant locations are points, and travel along it is more montage, or not focused on as much. They're the routes. So if you're making your map, like there is the random generation method in the book that Oscar has attempted, and I've attempted to on a much smaller scale, but using physical dice. You'll just generate locations, and you connect them with paths, routes, and these don't have to be just roads. They can be, rivers and creeks, and slight clearings, game paths, trenches, aqueducts and the like.
Yeah, the tables for these are awesome.
Yes, it's even if you don't use the method, really good idea sparker. What I like that was called out for creating immersive maps is you have an in-world map, but those in-world maps of the local area will probably have wrong information, either just being old, outdated, or it might be, deliberate sabotage.
Yep.
Uh, um, and with point crawls, you are always going between points and paths, but maybe you decide, nah, this doesn't work for us. We're going to go off road and make our own path. That's fine, but it's kind of a dangerous gamble. In some other systems or procedures I've seen, then this brings out like a getting lost kind of situation. Crowns makes it a lot more simple. Okay, they want to go to get to a point, but they're not going to follow this route available. Just create a new route from the point they're at to the point they're trying to get to, and roll on the d6 table. The route is going to be half the total distance of the original route, twice as dangerous, double the total distance, or twice as dangerous and double the total distance. So you could kind of say maybe that extra length is them getting lost, but it's just tied into the route being longer now. I really like that.
Yep, or effectively difficult terrain where it's the same distance, but
Oh, that.
if you're walking through a swamp, that's gonna suck.
And then, there's a weather table and all that adds a little bit extra. I love having weather tables, and this is nice and small, but it will give you, enough, at least if you normally don't think about weather. It will at least make you maybe be more aware of it.
And it adds in one for each season, so there's that.
Yes, always appreciated.
And then wilderness encounters for for what you're going to encounter, like the reaction from hostile to unfriendly, uncertain, or talkative.
Mm.
It suggests how to make encounter tables.
Oh no, definitely. Actually, I had a point I'll make, but I'll hold on to it next. Do you have something else to add?
Uh, in terms of wilderness travel, not specifically.
What about another point?
I mean, my next main one for the GMing section would have to be monsters. So if you have more to say on the general GMing section, go for it.
For me, I was going to bring up settlements, my third of the trifecta.
Yes, actually, I also have notes on settlements. So go.
Okay. You are traveling in the wilderness to get to a dungeon, and then traveling back. Where is your return point? The settlement. That's how you level up, and that's where you get to do your full rest and safety and the like. So it makes sense there's some design space you can work with in settlements. Crowns does, I think, a really good job at providing some support for focusing more on settlements. Um, and there are like different settlement types and sizes that might have different services, and the services can be banks and goldsmiths. And then there's docks and shipyards, so that gives you naval travel transport by ship, and now you have routes on the sea. Nobles and aristocrats, they can kind of considered a service because that allows you the players access to selling their more fancier items like grimoires, the spell books and the like. Smiths and armorers, you've got your stables, your tailors to make fancy clothes so you can interact better with nobles, which is something I want to get onto later. And then temples and abbeys, which are ways to identify spells and magic items and getting your weapons silvered and getting holy water and the like. It provides some information, a little bit of information on if the players keep coming back to the same town, the town should grow and gain access to new services and newer NPCs and the like. And then it tells you may maybe the players will probably want to start buying property, so it's cheaper for them to rest there. They have their own house, or maybe they want to buy a slightly better house so they've got a workable land, so they can basically just till their own fields and make a minor profit while they're resting. And if they really want to start investing in the town, maybe they'll start setting up their own shops, which once they start breaking even, they get just a shop now that's half discounted for player characters. So a lot there with settlements. And then coupled with war bands and the expanded mechanics with fortifications and the factions, settlements has I think, a really good foundation for uh, expanded play and also higher tier play as well. Yeah, like, I don't want to keep making a comparison to Mausritter, especially for people that haven't watched our video. But we did make mention of Mausritter, just assumed that the settlement part was going to be more role play and you weren't focusing too much on that, even though you did come back here to return your stuff. Here, there has been a lot more focus on, okay, you are going to do stuff in the settlement.
Yep.
Because
And
also there is a full rest action and all that, so you're going to do a lot more.
full
But yeah,
resting takes a week, we should mention.
yes. Which I'll expand on just a little bit. But I just want to allow you to talk.
No, yeah, fair enough. So like one of the things is you can run any service that you can buy. There's like a money and a table for how much it earns you passively and all that
Mm,
stuff in Crowns, and it is so detailed that if you look at Crowns through the lens of being specifically and I didn't when I first read it because I didn't know much about Knave at the time, as a Knave and Mausritter combination, you can really start to see where it's trying to bring that classic old school feeling into a more modern mechanical light. And I think that, services for silvered weapons and the like and holy symbols to help damage the undead and unholy beings is actually like one of those things that's been lost in a lot of the more modern style fantasy RPG. Like undead don't take extra damage from radiant and they don't take damage from healing damage anymore in 5e unless you homebrew it. And you know what? That's a fucking lame. That's lame. That mechanic was dope. It helped bring the focus on the concepts of life and anti-life.
well, especially in this game when you don't have those spells or the like that would or could affect that, you now need to find a different way of adding in that lower fantasy way of combating the undead,
Yep.
which will bring in the more old school feel.
Yeah, no, Crowns manages to, like, Crowns really does do an amazing job of bringing low fantasy feel to a game that allows you to get to the point where you are running, potentially, because one of the things is, in the GMing section there is a whole thing about campaign and factions and faction goals, and players starting off with one faction and then either taking it over or making their own separate faction with warbands and settlements and the like and goals. And you really can do that in Crowns. It really does manage to bring that to the table, which is great because there aren't a lot of games that do that right now.
My fourth point, things just feel a bit slower in a good way and emphasize some of the mundane. When you need to eat, it clearly states, yeah, you need to make sure you feed your mounts as well. When you sleep, you don't have your items on you. Sure, they might be within reach. Same thing with your mounts. The mounts that have their own inventory, they don't have those items on them. This is like, it doesn't outright state it, but it hints at how night surprises or attacks could be will be more dangerous. You won't have your stuff on you, or you won't have all your stuff. You can't just like lug everything all on. The focus on bedrolls being its own resource, and how there's degradation to it, and if you don't have a bedroll, you're gonna wake up shit. Just no resolve or hit protection from into the auto Mausritter. Matches has been its own light source. You're tracking matches, and the long/full rest actions. There are campfire scenes, the reveling, or the cooking. Those are it's just a small little procedure, but those can be played out little scenes. And then the full rest actions. You training, you resting and relaxing, you going to dig for leads, commission an item, go identify a magic item. Just feels slower, more mundane, in a good way.
It does. No, and I'm not even... I mean, mundane might be a good word, but I'm not sure slow is the right word. It's just attention to detail. Details that are typically ignored in other games.
Yes, but that in of itself, the pacing would be then slowed down so you could focus on those points more.
Yeah, I suppose.
I guess that's what I was trying to get at.
So, but yeah, onto one of the sections that about in the GMing section that really draws my eye and almost always does in every game, because that's how I be. That's how I was conditioned to be. Monsters in Crowns are quite a bit different than what you might expect from Into the Odd or most other Mark of the Odd games. The main thing is, so they still have a resolve score. They also have a score called Defiance. When a creature, a monster or enemy that would gain a condition such as from being wounded, will instead lose Defiance. When it reaches 0 Defiance, it dies or flees. Most creatures have 1, but some creatures have 2 or potentially 3 for being really big and scary. And then, in addition, instead of stats, monsters have what's called Morale. Morale is a save that they use to rally and continue fighting when afraid. It is the save they use to tear down fortifications. It is the save they use to attack. It is every save they have. And this is where things start to get a little bit weird for me, and where I start to not quite like the way that Crowns works, and this is a criticism, but I'm going to do it early, because it's very relevant. So a monster's resolve works the same way a player does. When it's at 0, it becomes bloodied, and when a bloodied monster takes critical damage, critical damage being it has to... critical damage is, I suppose, it succeeds a...
Vitality roll.
No, hold on. Okay, so I'm looking at this, and this is getting weirder. I'm going to read this out to you. So this is something that Sun and I have gone back and forth about when talking about Crowns in general. So just so that people know what's happening with this conversation, our default assumption was that unlike... so a player, when they are bloodied, they have to make a Vitality save to not take critical damage. If they succeed, they're fine. If they fail, they gain the wounded condition. They then have to make a will save or pass out, and if they succeed, they're fine. When your pack is full of conditions, you go down, unconscious. But anyways, so we assumed, and so the thing with monsters is there's a line that says, so I'm going to read this to you. And our default assumption that was a player also has to make a vitality save to deal critical damage, but it doesn't read that way. And basically critical damage, whenever a creature would gain a condition, it loses a defiance. But I'm going to read this to you verbatim, and I think I'm not sure what to make of this. This is going to be an interesting conversation.
Okay.
When a bloodied monster takes critical damage, and the attacking player succeeds in a vitality save plus the amount of damage dealt over the monster's resolve, the monster loses 1 defiance. So not only do they... But the thing is, anytime a monster would gain a condition, it instead loses 1 defiance. So this begs the question, does this mean that a player is capable of dealing 2 defiance damage to a creature in a single blow by having it both take critical damage and then them succeeding at the vit save?
So how I interpret this is the critical damage effect is triggered, so they must, well, the player, in this case, rolls the vitality.
No, because the thing is, critical damage is what happens when you fail your vitality save after getting hit at 0 resolve. Or taking damage over your resolve. That is explicitly how critical damage works in Crowns, because this is what happens when I read the game the day of, is I become a little bit more intimately familiar with it and get confused by things that are written. Yeah, taking damage, critical damage and death when a character... Okay, so taking damage. If a bloodied creature or character takes regular damage, including damage carried over from when they were pushed down to 0 resolve, they must attempt a vit save minus the amount of damage they took over their resolve. If they fail, they take critical damage. This implies that a monster has to make a morale save or take critical damage.
Okay, yep, fair enough.
And when a character takes critical damage, they gain the wounded condition and must make a will save. Could the player making a vitality save replace the will save and therefore allow a player to deal 2 defiance damage? Is that a valid interpretation of this? Or am I looking too deep? Because our previous assumption was that when a player would deal critical damage, then what happens is that they will go and make a vitality save instead of the monster making a morale save. But it says and.
Yeah. For the fact of how I kind of see it, it doesn't make too much sense why, almost by default, you would be doing 2 defiance damage.
I wouldn't even say by default. I will say, looking at the stat blocks, like, very few things have a defiance of 1. The list of things with a defiance of 1 are a local tough, skeletons, and wolves, and that's it.
Fair enough.
And when the other thing is, like, even spells rarely inflict conditions, which makes the thing about anytime it would gain a condition, it instead loses 1 defiance kind of interesting.
I kind of believe it is probably a typo issue.
This is the most updated version of Crowns, and I think I even asked about this. Hold on. Oh god, we're getting deep because I picked up Crowns when it was still being edited, and
well, you look on that. I just want to talk about Defiance a bit. So, well, just monsters in general. So yeah, the monster morale being the single save, it's a neat idea. I like it. And sure, with the introduction of Defiance, it feels a little bit weird. It's like, okay, you've converted all the saves into one thing, but now you've brought in this other thing. But it makes sense why Defiance was brought in, because Defiance is, because monsters, their morale will not take damage because in standard Into the Odd or Mausritter, monsters, their attributes, same with players, can take damage. In this case, that's not how it works in Crowns. So Defiance kind of replaces that feature where Defiance will take the damage. So the monster's morale won't start to dip, and then it's harder for the monster to do anything because their roll under scores way too difficult to roll under. So in this case, Defiance can then just be attributed to hits it takes before death after the resolve HP is gone, or if it gets conditions. So
Oh, one of the other things is that morale and vitality are not permanently reduced by taking damage past 0 resolve for players or monsters. It is only a situational reduction based on getting hit.
Yeah. So it's this is the one thing that I knew this was definitely going to be the biggest thing we'd probably talk about in terms of critiques and weirdness.
Yeah, it is. It's one of Crowns' strangest rules, and so under the assumption that it was you have to roll vitality to deal any defiance, I was like, that's insane. You have morale right there. Why aren't you using that? But
so
reading
I
this
think
now,
it's a typo, but
I don't think it's a typo. I think that you're able to do 2 defiance. Dude, Mausritter is deadly. You can one hit most enemies. Why wouldn't Crowns be the same?
That's fair enough. I guess one of the things, sure, this might be a way to offset the 2-hit roll just by design, making it not as deadly. Having a way to deal 2 divines. Yeah, fair enough. That could be definitely one way. I guess just because of how weirdly constructed that sentence is.
Yeah,
it
no.
just makes me go,
It's a double take. Oh, giant spiders also have 1 defiance. Interesting.
Yes,
And I mean,
spider.
but when you look at the things with Defiance 3, I feel like it's a bit more justified in the concept of like these are things you can't one hit. Like a dragon and a golem both have Defiance 3.
So what? A golem can go down in two Defiance, 2 hits with you doing Defiance 2 damage twice.
Yep.
Basically. Which, in the concept of how I assume Crowns kind of feels, I would not expect a golem to go down with 2 players attacking it in the same turn. But,
Honestly,
it is a weird bit that if we the best way is just to get it from the creator's mouth.
Yeah. And
what do you mean by this?
Yeah, I mean, I could always leave another comment and be like, "Hey, I was reading this. Why is this the way that it is?"
I thought they replied to you about it.
Oh no, that was about a typo.
Okay.
It was what it was is that the rule used to read that a player must succeed on a vit save minus the amount of damage dealt over the monster's resolve. And the reason why that was is because I think earlier on in Crowns, the way that most commonly modifiers work in roll under systems, for those who don't know, is that a modifier is added to your score. So if you have a +2 to vitality, your target would be your vitality score +2. But if you were to say apply it to the dice, you would want a negative. So you would be trying to still roll under. So if you roll a 20 minus 12, it could that would be you would be rolling an 8 at most, and that's more likely to succeed. And so I was like, hey, are these typos or am I going crazy?
I guess we're firmly in the critiques situation now.
I had one. I wanted to give a quick overview of some combat stuff, just very briefly first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the interesting this ties into monsters first. Then we'll go a bit more onto it. One of the things about monsters is that monsters are guaranteed to always do half damage. A monster must make a morale roll to hit you, and if it misses, it still deals half damage. Players, however, can try to defend from any incoming attack, including missed attacks, and if you succeed at a senses save with some modifiers potentially from either light armor or a shield, you will also take half damage. You have to successfully defend against a missed attack to take no damage. So while roll to hit is a thing, monsters still have a degree of auto hit.
Yes, which is another one of those things. It's like, okay, you've built in an auto hit in a roundabout way, which is why I'm very curious about like playing this out and going, okay, now it makes sense. But yeah, that's I do like that is in there for a two-hit system to still have auto damage in some manner.
Yep,
I think that's cool.
And players don't get it, which is, it makes monsters feel a bit more dangerous if a player fails their hit.
Yeah.
One of the going on a bit more in combat, it's pretty simple. A round is 1 minute, and you can actually take two what are called main actions, and you can break up any main action you want into two quick actions. Quick actions are things like levers, doors, while the main action is scrounging through your pack, attacking, or using a utility action. Using an attack or a utility action will automatically end your turn. So if you need to move, it is more effective to move and then use a sprint action to go an extra 20 feet. For a total of 50 feet.
Yeah, or if you're going to pass that item out, use your main action spin to some quick actions, pass that item out, and then pull the lever or whatever, and then attack. Otherwise, you won't be able to do your item and pulling the lever thing.
Exactly.
Something I wanted to bring your attention to, since you did bring it up.
Oh?
With the attack action thing, it says, on a success in either case, on a success, your turn ends. And in the utility section, if you succeed, and your turn ends. So do you think that means only if you get what you want with that main action does your turn end? Because that's what it sounds like to me, both in the attacking bit and the utility actions bit.
Let's see here. If you succeed, you get what you want. Yeah, that sounds like what it is.
So it might not be all. It might not be an all-in situation when I first read it, many months ago.
Yeah, and the thing is, we're also like, my version of Crowns that I learned and read was version 1.50. I now have the official Crowns first edition PDF open. So
yes, like when I first read it, I was like, ooh, but I'm pretty sure it was probably still like that back then. But now reading the slight structure of that sentence, it's not, doesn't sound like too much of a gamble now. It's like, oh, if you get what you want, then your turn ends. So there is still a slight risk. You probably still want to do all those smaller actions first before you commit to doing your utility action or doing your attack action.
Especially since you can't take the same action twice. So even if you fail the attack, that's an attack lost. Go try a utility action instead.
And, I guess if you decide, no, I'm just going to attack, and then you fail, it's like, well, I guess you still have an extra action left. You can do something else. So in a way, it's kind of like a pity action afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is interesting. But yeah, ambushers always go first, and then initiative is each round players make a coordination save to see if they go before their prey. So that can get interesting fast. Natural ones enhance your attack to deal a d12, and or on a defense they will impair your enemy's attack to a D4. So that adds in a type of critical hit, which is
Mm.
lacking in other games in general in the into the odd system. And then also, if you dual wield, you get to re-roll your 2-hit save, which makes dual wielding a potential method of using a hypothetically lower damage weapon of a D6 die into a crit fishing weapon, which is an interesting idea, especially since you sacrifice defense. It makes, to me, dual wielding seem, I think, mechanically the most effective version of dual wielding into the odd and Mausritter, because other games let you reroll your damage.
Yeah, like just letting people know, your weapons have a damage die associated, like a D4, D6, D10. So enhancing it to a D12, that's the dice jump that you can get. And impaired is a D4.
Yep.
So just clarifying that. But yeah, this is one of those other extra cases where it's like, okay, at least they're building on the 2-hit and making sure there's a lot connected to it.
Yeah, no, they
Like,
do a
okay.
lot with it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go.
Oh, since we're in combat, I might as well just throw it in here. But mounted combat gets a 4-paragraph, small in terms of crowns, a paragraph explanation on the rules for mounted combat, which makes me go, oh, okay, they're detailing out mounted combat enough that you've got clarity on how it all works, making me go, okay, they kind of expect people to do mounted combat then, or there will be mounted combatants fighting you. I like that. It tells players, hey, use these rules.
Yeah,
Or inspires players, ooh, I have an idea for a character now.
and you can't hit prone enemies in mounted combat unless you have a pole arm. So that means that if you're ever fighting mounted enemies and they don't have pole arms, just lie on the ground and stab them.
Yes, that is true. Like, it's a slight oversight because you would think, would a warhorse not get like a trample damage attack?
Uh, they might have one actually. I haven't checked.
It doesn't really state it anywhere. But yeah, actually, beasts of burden, nope, don't see it anywhere. So that might be a slight oversight, but I guess in the GMing section, I think there's like the scaling damage.
Yep.
You could just like associate to like a D6 maybe.
There's also the consequences section, so you could be like, yeah,
Yeah,
take some damage for like failing your dive out of the way of this horse.
yeah. But do you have anything else, or shall we more firmly go into the critiques?
I suppose the couple of things that I really want to talk about are more
Standouts.
standouts. Yeah, because
Yep.
it's like armor is a standout
Mm.
in this game,
Okay.
and warbands
Uh,
are a standout. But yeah, all right, critiques. Well,
okay.
you've already heard most of my monster critique weird thing where it's like critical damage and then succeed a vitality save plus damage dealt over resolve.
Yep.
And it
That was one of mine as well. Just the weirdness of it. Slight weirdness, at least.
it's
But
still
especially
weirdly
that.
phrased, but I think the idea of potentially dealing 2 Defiance is interesting because it adds to the potential tankiness because we're like, oh, a player might be able to just auto succeed at a vitality save, but it's like, starting out in crowns, you have at most over 50% with a 12, and you will only ever have a max of 15 in any stat, so there's always a good chance a player might fail, even with bonuses.
Hmm. For me, I'll just get one of the simplest and throwaway ones. Um, the vignette-like page border aesthetic. I don't like it. It
Oh, you don't like
makes
it?
the no, it makes the PDF look kind of cheaply made, in my opinion. I think would have looked a lot more stand out if it just was just a clean white page. Because beyond that, it's just there's no texture to the background. It's just white. So this vignette kind of border kind of looks weird to me.
Yeah, and it's also like it's not a pattern, it's just like a patch of shadow.
Yeah, yeah. Um, like I don't know if they were going for like this looks like it was photo scanned, or it's like, slightly popping out at you, but not a fan. A very small thing, but yeah, not a fan.
Oh man,
I'm
mine
not going
by
to go into your court.
comparison. Yeah, no, I have only one. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I don't mind it too much, but I can kind of see what you mean. Yeah, it does look like it's kind of been photo scanned weirdly. As someone who went to the American education system where everything was like the 19th version of a copy of something that had been done years and years ago, that's a familiar look. I don't mind it. But on mine, roll to hit, even with all the stuff they build onto it, with monsters dealing half damage, with if you miss, you can still take another action, with potential like natural ones, and to be like a massive success and give you a critical. I'm not super heavily sold on roll to hit. Um, Overall, I've talked about why like auto hit a lot in general, with both Mausritter and Into the Odd. I think it's well built. I just slightly prefer roll to hit.
You mean
Auto hit.
auto hit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. Sorry, I have the word
Mm,
roll to hit on my notes, and I'm like, fucking, that's the word that keeps replacing this subject in my head now.
yeah. Like just because, like I have the same note, just because it is based off Mouse Ritter slash Into the Odd, the reintroduction of the hit rolls has made me bounce off of it slightly. Only just because of that. If you weren't expecting it, then it's fine, and you're definitely going to be okay with classic to hit and then damage rolls. You'll be fine.
I actually think it
It
makes it a selling point to people who are less familiar with Mark of the Odd games, to be like,
exactly.
oh, well, this one's not that weird. It still has roll to hit.
Yeah.
And
So
then anyone who knows is like, and that's what makes it worse.
yeah. So like it will be a better jumping off introduction to this system from people that are from traditional D&D systems and the
Mhm.
like. It's just a little bit weird for me and Oscar here. That's all. It's a personal little tiny critique. But they have at least done a decent amount of stuff that has made the to hit not a superfluous addition to the thing.
Yeah, no.
But
Looking at all the mechanics around it, it's a solid system.
hmm, but one thing that the modifiers with the roll under, I'm okay with modifiers with roll under. If possible, I would probably prefer not. Um, but I'm okay with modifiers if they affect the attribute instead of the roll, because that kind of just makes more sense in my mind, I think. Um, but also, if it was only additions, it would be even better. But that isn't the case here. There are additions and subtractions, which, um, how I see it with roll under systems, the as little math as possible is kind of the selling point. But if you are adding math, just adding pluses to the total score temporarily, just to see if you're rolling under, is what I think a lot of roll under systems try and aim for. But then adding subtraction in, it's a very minor thing, but it is one of the
Counterpoint:
things.
Mouserter and Into the Odd have subtraction. They just have permanent subtraction to your modifier,
That
anyways.
is, oh no, that is true. And for me personally, that makes more sense because it's not a uh, potentially each round you're adding an extra bonus. It's like, okay, no, from here on until I rest for a couple days now, or at least at the end of the adventuring day, okay, now I can adjust my sheet type of thing. But yeah, that's just one of those things. Like I know probably in a roll under game that I make, I'm probably going to use modifiers, and I know like the mecha hack uses modifiers, but does it in a plus manner. But is one of those things that's like the subtraction thing is something that's like I think if possible I would have liked it not being here.
I personally think you're crazy, but I run Eclipse Phase, which has like fucking constant situational modifiers to a roll under system, so I'm already like fucking built to ignore that as like a system. Like that's just the default assumption for me because that was my introduction to roll under games. So
Oh no, that's fair enough.
I would prefer a situational modifier to a permanent negative stat modifier.
That's okay. What about you?
On my end, I'm out of criticisms. My only things are the monster thing, which I actually now like because it adds into Crown's deadliness. Actually, I mean, Crowns might be one of the less deadly ones. It takes you. I mean, you can go unconscious pretty quickly if you have a bad will.
Yeah.
But but I also like the idea that conditions force you to drop things out of your pack. Because I think I've made this confused statement with Mausritter, and it's because I read Crowns first.
You read Crowns first,
and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense and is dope as fuck. You've taken a condition. You can't carry the same amount of stuff, and then when you run out of space, you drop because you can't physically go on. If you can carry nothing, how can you stand?
Yeah. But without getting too much into that, I'll just go a quick fire round of my critiques, and then we can talk more about the stuff that we like. Another minor like visual thing. There are some weird text distortion issues sometimes. Another case of it kind of looks like the printer slightly skipped like a couple millimeters, even though this is a PDF.
It's a Microsoft Word document converted to a PDF. It may actually just be a like a Microsoft Word error.
I'm using PDF reading Acrobat.
I am using PDF Reader as well, but it's a Microsoft Word doc exported to a PDF. We cannot ignore the possibility that Microsoft Word fucked up because it's a Microsoft product.
Oh yeah, totally fair. It's just like some extra visual quirks, not knocking the system. It's just something I noticed. It kind of lends itself to the more, is this a photoscanned document that has been bequeathed to me by some old gamer nerd, and now I will bequeath on to other people?
I think that's an intentional stylistic choice.
Like if that's the case, then I'm totally down for it. Just without it, it makes me go, that's a weird vignette and the like. But yeah, the feats current XP and the lifetime XP.
Oh, you don't like that?
It's a minor thing. So you gain XP and you have your collected the XP you gain that you'll track to see when you level up. But then also that XP can be spent on feats. But you need to make sure you track how much of that XP you have spent as well. So that's kind of like what the XP you've spent, but you're not taking away from the lifetime XP. It's another one of these minor things that's just a little weird. Sure, it just write it on your character sheet. Just add, okay, I've spent 250 now, I've spent 750. But it's just one of those weird things. I maybe because I'm thinking of like, it's fine, you can be a little bit more harsh, or that's the cost of a feat. I wouldn't have minded if you literally took away from your lifetime XP to get the feat.
Well, yeah, but that would down you in levels. And that's what it's trying to avoid, is saying you don't lose levels to gain feats.
Oh, yes, no.
Because then here's the thing. If you're losing levels to gain feats, that would start to get insane math-wise, because you have to start calculating losing stats from losing a level and losing HP from a level, meaning you'd have to keep a detailed record of what each level gave you.
Oh, I'm aware that there's some mathy things there. My quick way of doing it is you've hit that milestone for the level, but you just have just an XP deficit right now. You just need to earn back that XP, and you're not getting. You've already reached those levels. You just need to get back that XP.
Oh, so then like you have to like an XP deficit before you can start on the next level?
Yeah, basically.
That feels needlessly punishing.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's just the way I kind of see it in my head. But yeah, I guess it's just me being slightly like, okay, there's 2 XP numbers I need to keep track of.
Just Mathiverse.
Even though one is only. Oh yeah, yeah.
In a fucking dice-based hobby where people will calculate probability, you are making the Mathiverse argument. I gotta say, I respect that.
That is fair. It's just one of those weird things, especially how it's kind of typed out to me. It's like, oh, okay, it's not. I don't take away from the XP. It's just another. It's a budget I have, so I need to make sure I keep track of the budget I've accrued, type of thing. But yeah, that's fair enough.
No, and actually, I will say it was something that took me a couple of read-throughs to fully comprehend, because I was like, wait, what? Double take, wait, what? And then, but I do remember that. Yeah. And you're right, it is worded somewhat poorly, but I also think that keeping double track of your XP isn't that big of a deal.
No, and while I'm not trying to, it might sound like I'm making mountains out of molehills. I really hate that term. But yeah, I'm trying to find critiques because I'm trying to do better at critiquing things.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, yeah, oftentimes we always try to review games in a positive light, so we're not ever trying to sit here and just be like, fuck this, fuck that. Unless it references Gary Gygax, you won't get me like screaming at a game. Sorry, I should say positively references Gary Gygax.
Yeah. Speaking of feats, the mention of spells and feats in that section, but then not being on the same page or the next page, kind of feels off from the rest of the book, because with the layout of it, they've kept like a single chapter on a spread, and then character creation on a spread, inventory it's on a spread, but then when it gets to the crap, I've now lost it. The chapter 9 grimoires and spells or blah blah blah. Oh, cool. That's only a single page.
Yeah.
And then on the next page, advancement. Oh, it talks about feats, and it does mention see feats, but it feels weird because then you just keep going, and then because I've read this book before, I didn't even realize it. I was just like, okay, I'm on to followers and all that, and then I went through the GMing section and the wilderness section and languages and beasts, and then it's like, oh, the feats. Oh yeah, true. But it makes sense why, because there's a lot of feats, but it does feel weird how it was referenced and it wasn't with the reference immediately like the rest of the book.
Yeah, no, that's the kind of thing that does tend to annoy me. I mean, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I'm not sure what would be worse though. This might be a necessary evil. Like, would it be so? It's on advancement. It's like you can get these thing, and then here's like, and then to have the feat list is for reference like 3 pages long, or no, 5 pages, 7 pages.
Yeah,
it ends at page 33.
It's a D66 table.
Yeah, and then and it starts at page 26. That is a 7-page long list of feats. So saying you could buy feats and then giving all the feats right then, would that be worse?
No, yeah, like in terms of making sure the flow works, it makes sense. If anything, maybe.
I know a worse thing that they did with the feats.
Oh, what?
So the list of feats is listed numerically and also alphabetically. However, so it starts on page 26 immediately after the enemy's feats, and it tells you about feats, and then it starts listing feats, And then you go and you hit Battle Medic, and then there's the table of feats, the full list with various requirements, costs for various levels and the like. And then you go on to feat number 16 and so on.
Yes. In terms of yes, especially with how I know you're reading it, which is single pages.
Yep.
Yes, that is not the best way to do it with, okay, feats, blah, blah, blah. I get 5 here. Oh, and then there's the table. It is more forgivable with how I'm reading it, which is the spread format,
Yeah.
where you get the feats and the table at the same time. But yeah, totally fair point at that end.
Because, like, you could have
But
either
I
put
will
the
then,
table at the end or the beginning.
mm,
Like, I
but
realize it
I will
eats a
then
full page.
mention spells, which spells is just a 2-page spread, and that could have been, yeah, like, you know, there is less argument of it being right next to when it was referenced, since it's just 2 pages. But
That's
yeah,
true.
that's just something that stood out to me. And then something I want your clarification on, because this is another wording issue, since I think that's seemingly a pattern with me. Usage dot durability.
Mhm.
Slightly unclear. It would be in the combat section, I believe.
Alright. Also, I will say I just
So
read something that contradicted my concept for how critical damage for monsters works and contradicts the other thing. So I am actually now going to leave another comment on the page and be like,
okay,
please clarify. Because when
okay.
it talks about
So
undead, oh, go on. Sorry.
oh yeah. So slightly unclear usage dot durability. Is it after every use of your weapon? Do you roll to check, or is it just if it was used in combat, i.e., like a Mausritter? Because it does seem like the re-roll marker dot to re-roll seems like, okay, maybe that means for if you're using your weapons, that's after combat, as well as maybe the improvised melee auto mark a dot after combat, but it wasn't very clear.
Hold up. All right, hold on. I am looking at things. Uh, so you were talking about.
Combat gear.
Okay, so on page 8 it
Um,
says melee weapon, armor, or ammunition is used in combat on a roll of 1d6 on a 5 to 6 mark usage dot.
yeah. So, do you think that means a Mausritter, where if anything was used in combat after it's done, roll this, or is it every single time?
When I ran it, I used the Mausritter method because
Mm,
that makes a bit more sense to me. But it says in combat, not on a turn or not in a round.
yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But I also know you can mark a dot on armor to reduce damage during combat.
And I think you can mark a dot to in the weapon section, you can mark a dot to re-roll an attack roll, which makes me think, okay, is you just choosing to mark a dot make you a re-roll disqualify the concept that you might be already rolling to see if you've marked a dot? It's just one of those things where it's like, this might be a if you run it this way, your weapons are going to blow up a lot quicker. Or if you run it the after combat situation, it's a more forgiving way to do it. But yeah, there's another slightly unclear sentence there.
Fuck it, open to interpretation, homebrew your own solutions, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And they're all the, I will emphasize, nitpicks that I have.
I mean, I have one nitpick. So I've spoken at length about my hatred of spreads. Reading spells is a nightmare.
Yeah, true.
I read
Y-
explicitly singles, and reading spreads is a fucking nightmare.
yeah. For you with the spells, yeah, that is not friendly to single page reading at all.
So, yeah, for the way that this works, for those who are wondering on a spread, you have page 36, section 33 spells. And you have a D44 table of spells. And then the page ends, and a new page begins, and you have a D44 table of what the source of a spell is, the strong effect, the miscast, and the recharge effect are.
Yeah, so if you looked at it in a spread format, you could read across the whole row. It's like, okay, fireball, that's the appearance, that's the effect, and then you know that that's a one page. Go over to the second page on the spread, you see the rest of the information. But for poor old Oscar, they only get to know what the fireball kind of looks like and the effect, and then they have to go to the next page.
Yeah, fun fact, when I first read this book, I thought that, like, there was an entire section on spells fucking missing, and I'm like, why is there a mechanic that has no resolution? What do you mean, strong effect? There's no strong effect listed. And then someone was like, no, dude, it's a spread. They're right next to each other, and I went to the next page, I'm like, fuck. This is
Hmm.
actually why I don't like spreads. This specific table.
Fair enough. Since we both, you definitely read this a long time before we started talking about design stuff. At least as far as I can remember.
I would have
Um,
read Crowns after writing, after releasing the initial version of Dark Star, for sure.
okay, okay.
Because I didn't even know about itch.io until, like, the winter that I got back, or the winter that I started pay GMing, which is to
Hmm.
say,
Hmm.
it's December of last year, 2021, and I
Yeah.
found, I don't remember how I found Crowns. I think you might have mentioned it to me.
I think. Yeah. No. I think that
Oh
was like
no,
you
I
liked
remember
this.
why I bought Crowns. You recommended Crowns to me when I asked you for Christmas recommendations for tabletop
Ah.
games, and you kept
Yeah.
giving me fucking Magic Forest games, and I'm like, stop giving me games with the forest. And you said, okay, how about Crowns? There's no forest.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
great, I'll buy it. And I've loved this game ever since.
Well, now that we're in the positive upswing, why don't we go to standouts then?
Yeah, armor in Crowns or works better than in Mausritter. So armor has a maximum damage reduction by default of 1 that is passive. This is only achieved by wearing heavy armor. Light armor gives you a +2 to your senses roll to defend, and in addition, you can also pair both armors with a shield in your main or offhand to give yourself a further +2 to senses, meaning you can have a +4 to senses with light armor and a shield, or a +2 to senses to defend with heavy armor with a 1 reduction without spending durability. Immediately
Yeah,
addresses my criticisms of Mouse Ritter.
yeah, like this is one of those cases comparing Mausritter with Crowns again, where how Crowns' combat works, where players roll to dodge, opens up the design space to allow armor to utilize that feature and like give bonuses to dodging. So yeah, uh, uh, definitely a great way to differentiate the three types of defense you can get.
Yep.
For me, since I mentioned it in Mouse Reader, I'll mention here too the price sheet on the front page.
Yup.
And general items. It gives you repair, weapons, armor. You getting masterwork versions of your weapons, ammo, and armor, lighting, lodging, storage, mounts, and transportation costs as well. very extensive, very compact, really good price reference sheet. So you just, if you have the physical book or the PDF, just front page, easy to read. And since we were talking about spreads, it's a spread layout designed with spread in mind, which means a lot of the chapters are just 2 pages. And in a spread format, the chapter is in front of your face. So nice and easy to read and absorb all that information, and useful at the table and play, because you can just open the book up in your face and you've got everything you need for that particular topic you're looking at.
I have no comment on the spread version. I've never read it, and I refuse to. Even if it would make reading spells more... Actually, no, that's not true. I don't utterly refuse to, because I'm gonna buy the physical Crowns book one of these days. And by one of these days, possibly today. It's only $18.
Oh, your first physical book?
It's not my first physical book. I own, like, all of the fucking 5e books in physical, because I bought the physical copies because they don't sell PDFs, the cheap bastards.
Well, I thought we were ignoring.
No, I'm not. I'm not gonna fucking have someone sit here and tell me I did not waste $50 per book to add them to my library collection to have someone tell me I don't have physical RPG books. I don't have physical RPG books of good RPGs. There's a difference.
Fair enough.
It might have been a mistake, but it was a mistake I made when I was getting into the hobby, and it's important to note this because it's on the fucking crime list for 5e, alright? The price of those books is stupid ridiculous. I mean, like, they aren't even good hardbacks, they're fucking cardboard. And there's no paperback option. Crowns comes in paperback by default.
I'm okay with the hard books of 5e, they're fine. But that's fair enough. All good.
If you want to get me, if you want me to like your hardback book, it better be fucking leather bound. I swear to God.
I see.
None of that cardboard shit.
Well, your turn.
Yeah. I know I've talked a bit about the GMing section, but the fact that it has such a robust rule for making factions, campaigns, maps, and settlements and businesses can be ported over to pretty much anything. You might have to adjust some numbers for, like, the money, but, I mean, fucking cares. It's a useful tool, usable anywhere, and it is, I mean, as long as it's fantasy, you could probably take some of the principles of Crowns into a sci-fi game, but, like, for almost any fantasy game, Crowns' world generation is fantastic. And honestly, their dungeon generation rules aren't bad. If I have to design a physical dungeon, I use the Crown rules for room sizes.
It's definitely something I forgot to bring up earlier, and I am going to bring up later, but yes, I definitely will use Crowns as just a source book of tables and information and procedures and mechanics. I will rip out settlements and the like and just use them with Mausritter, use them with another OSR game, use them with just any game, because it provides really good guidelines that are, not too overwhelming or anything. It's a spread. That's fine. Perfect. Another standout for me is spells. So Crowns utilizes the Mausritter way of spells, where, just like Knave, spell books, each singular items contain a single spell, and there are the usage dots. You can decide how many usage dots you'll use to allow you to roll a certain amount of d6, and the sum, the highest, the single die, those dice you use, and determine the effect of the spell. What Crowns does to build upon what Mausritter has done was the addition of the source.
Oh no, the high is also unique to Crowns. It was just summon dice in Mausritter.
Yes, there are two. Crowns brings in the high dice terminology, so now you can look at the single highest die, But the one I want to make sure I get across is the idea of um, source and the connection to strong effect. So each spell has a source that when you cast it within 60 feet of that source, the spell's effect is enhanced, and either it's stronger or it does something slightly different. And so this makes spellcasters be more aware of the environment. And if you're more aware of the environment, then you'll get extra bonuses. And if you can maybe even create the source, if it's easier to do so, then that will make your spells. You're basically maximizing the use of your spells. For those that play video games, my mind immediately goes to Divinity Original Sin with the the pools of you know elemental pools of the like. I immediately think of that, and I think
Yes.
that's really cool, really cool. A neat bit of design, and I will definitely take that and steal it.
Yeah, no, spell sources is a fucking cool idea, especially since multiple people with the same spell can benefit from one guy going first. So, like, how many dots does your grimoire have? Oh, not that many. Okay, then you know what? Go cast Fireball and make sure to hit something that you can set on fire. And then if I'm within 60 feet of the heart of a raging fire, my Fireball, which my grimoire has all of its dots unused, will have a strong effect cast, and we can fuck this guy up. And you can use a spell to clear a room, let me fucking tell you.
Yes, exactly. And then, like, not even just using the same spell, but darkness, creating a field of darkness, and the strong source for it is sunlight or bright lights. But then the strong source of darkness, total darkness, is invisibility. So if you've got darkness, pop darkness, and then your invisibility spell will work even better.
Yup.
So there's some neat stuff there. Even if it's yeah, the ideas start rolling in with that.
Spellcasting in Crowns is super busted, and much like Knave, you can only cast the spell once. Unlike Knave, spells are super strong.
Hmm. And the same thing with Mausritter. Just to go over it, to recharge these tomes, there is a special per spell. There's a different way of recharging it. Like the fireball, you need to place this grimoire in the heart of a fire for a day to recharge 1 dot. So you need if you've fully expended the grimoire, you need to place it in a heart of a fire for 3 days. Just shows you how extensive the recharging process can be for certain spells. What about you?
For me, feats in Crowns are one of the things that elevates it exceptionally. In Into the Odd, in Mausritter, in Screams Amongst the Stars, your character's advancement is primarily money for equipment, health, and a stat upgrade, and in Knave it is much the same. Crowns lets you actually make choices to go ahead and build a character that is more than just a pile of stats. And that's something that I really appreciate, because that's one of my favorite things to do in RPGs. As I once said to a guy on the Shadow of the Demon Lord server about the Weird Wizard playtest, I'm sorry, this is a role-playing game. I thought I was here to play a fucking role. And while that doesn't quite apply in the same way, I feel like, the ability to make a character that has a ability that, while not unique, further defines or allows them to do interesting things is, frankly, a improvement. It adds to the role-playing aspect of a role-playing game. I'm not just some roguish guy with 2 daggers who stabs people. I'm a roguish guy with 2 daggers that stabs people that also happens to have the arcane conduit feat for some nonsense reason.
Yes, These are one of the classic ways of doubling down or introducing something new into your repertoire. Um, yeah, uh, I like the introduction of them. Cause I just have a fascination with, well, you've got that inventory. Why not do some fucky shit with it? I like the idea of making beats actually an item that you need to put in your inventory, but that's another story.
Yeah,
Um,
next week's story specifically.
yes, in terms of the release schedule. Um, um, but then for me, I briefly mentioned it, but fortifications. So Warband, you are a single character and you want to fight a dragon, but the dragon is huge. Well, that means you need to collect a lot of people, get a little army to be able to fight that dragon properly. That is a warband scale, about 20 fighting people, with some support serfs and the like. Fortifications are considered warbands, but they themselves cannot attack and are just, defenses. So, and if you have fortifications that surround a warband, the enemy warband has to get through those fortifications first before they can actually affect the warband inside. It's a very simple system to allow for sieges and the like, and is a small addition, but a neat one to add on to the little warfare scale combat system that Warbands kind of fits in and works really well with settlements and the like. Because, this settlement, does it have fortifications? And if it's getting attacked, well, then you can just think of the warband system. And it's like, okay, these little creatures, they don't affect us, so that's fine. But when an army comes, then you can zoom out into that warband scale and have that little encounter going on. I think it's nice.
Yeah, no, and I've said before, I like how warbands are a method of having mass combat and just being like, yep, you can fight at this scale, fight as normal. A warband of bandits is much like a warband of knights, except for the same difference that any one knight would have against any one bandit.
Mm.
There's
And
still like 40 dudes.
it's a small thing, but with the action economy in Crowns with their combat, when a warband fights a non-warband, it is considered a minor action.
Oh yeah.
So nice and easy to squish single targets.
And also, I think all your attacks are enhanced.
Yes, that too. Um, a very small thing, but because of the Mausritter inventory system, I really like um the matches, rations, and bedroll supply counters that have been separated from the inventory because these are used so commonly. It makes sense to free it up from the 10 grid system, just like how you're able to carry about 250 crowns or coin before you now need to make it an actual item to carry more.
It is
It's
100 in crowns.
100 in crowns, 250 in mass I believe. But yeah, I like that. You're going to be using matches, rations, and bedroll a lot. It doesn't need to be an item. It can be its own separate um, slot that you'll always have. I like it. And it like clearly calls out, hey, these three things matter. Beyond that, there's very small things, but we're going quite long with this episode.
Yeah, sorry, it's so long, everyone. Much like the Shadow of the Demon Lord episode, Crowns is probably I would place Crowns at second place, below Shadow of the Demon Lord. And there are just like except for my two criticisms, Mausritter is just like I don't I prefer crowns, but Mausritter is technically, and by technically I mean the way that the game physically functions, is a bit superior with auto hit and the whole not having to roll vitality to critically wound, which is stated in an undead stat block, which makes me question what I was arguing for with Sun earlier. And if you're listening to this episode, assuming I get a reply from Ward Against Evil, there may be a future Oscar at the end here giving clarification.
Or maybe an addendum in the pinned comments.
That would be less editing. Check the comments if you don't hear future Oscar. Or not comments, the description if you don't hear future Oscar.
So if you don't have any more standouts, why don't we go into what we want to take or excited for in terms of hacking and the like before we wrap things up?
Yeah. Well, go on now then.
Okay.
Start off.
Okay. I would immediately steal the dungeoneering system, the settlement system, and the long full raster actions type of thing.
Agreed.
I really like that. I think it's system agnostic enough that you can just take it, steal it, and for me personally, I would immediately just go to Mausritter since that's my OSR go-to. I think they work perfectly, and the evolution of Mausritter's magic system, definitely take the source effect and even the new dice terminology of high. And because we're talking about that, why not low? Why not doubles? Something nice and small enough so it works within the 3-letter terminology of the other ones. Well, high is 4, but never mind that. What about you?
And dice was also 4.
Yes, that is true. I guess
Dice is a 4-letter word, son.
I think I was only thinking of some.
Clearly. On my end, no, I agree about the settlement stuff. I haven't really considered a fantasy hack of crowns because my fantasy hack of crowns would be modifying the things I don't like and adding in additional stat blocks, and that would be it. See, the thing about crowns is that I like crowns enough to keep crowns for what it is. If I wanted to do something different than a dungeon crawling fantasy game, I mean, crowns actually does have like nobility working stuff, but I would run something else like Court of Blades or Houses of the Blooded or Sword Chronicle. Games that are specifically designed around that. So for what Crowns is, I mean, you know what? I say that I like mechanically Mausritter more, but Crowns is so clearly my favorite because we've gone for an hour and 41 minutes of recording. I don't know what the final cut of this will be. This might be our longest episode. I'm sorry. But yeah, and no, I mean, okay, fuck. I mean, do you have anything like really big before I talk about the fucking thing?
Do you want me to give my closing thoughts?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. What I have coming next is, fucking bullshit, but I'm also trying to curse myself into action despite the fact that I've been doing nothing all week, specifically.
Okay. Alright. So, there is a lot I like in Crowns, though I prefer the no-to-hit system of Mausritter, so I'd rather co-opt the parts I like and stitch them into Mausritter to run a Crowns game with that system instead. But bias aside, and if I had all the free time to play any game I want, then I'd totally give Crowns a go. I think Crowns is a great modern interpretation of the old school vibe, being an easy way to play and experience it without really any of the cumbersomeness that you might expect from old school type games. So I think it is an easy recommendation from me, and especially for those that have played D&D with that 2-hit thing. Ignore the nitpicks. Ignore the this is slightly weird.
It's weird for Into the Odd, is what we're saying.
Yes, I think Crowns is great. Go play it.
Yeah, the core rules are free.
Yeah.
You just don't get any of the art. Alright, so in terms of hacking Crowns, I have been working on and off on a Crowns hack for at least 6 months.
Okay.
Specifically, I've been hacking Darkstar into a Crowns slash Mausritter hack, where I do kind of go in between the two with some of my own personal tastes added in. So, like for instance, I kept morale, and kept only situational modifiers rather than permanent attribute uh, damage. And so,
Okay.
it's pretty fun. I quite like the way Crowns' stat blocks work, and it makes making modified stat block options kind of easy. That's great, and it's a sci-fi game, so it has all sorts of sci-fi things like oxygen and environmental hazards and the like. But Crown's a really great base to work off of to get ideas for running things like this, and I basically the only thing I took out was roll to hit. I mean, no, I took out a few other things. It leans about midway in between Mausritter and Crowns itself. So, fucking in an attempt to continue to curse myself to actually produce the games I talk about on Beyond the Dragon by the time the episode comes out. Although this one maybe not. I've been taking a break from everything that is work, unless I'm literally physically running a game lately. Because breaks are important, and Thanksgiving burned me the fuck out by existing and being a holiday. So yeah, fucking Crowns is again, it's free. You should get it, and I mean, I guess we've already gone for like nearly 2 hours. Do you want me to at least briefly cover what it was like running it?
I think that's useful.
So I ran Crowns super wrong when I ran it, and I need to specify that. But I ran it in a one shot for a group of players, and Crowns is fucking great. It feels good to run. It feels good to. I would hope it feels good to play. I guess I'd have to ask the players who actually played with me. But no, Crowns is a fantastic game to run. It feels smooth and easy, and like the main thing is like, oh, like my players ignored some areas that were blocked off because they didn't know that they could take time to clear something because they had like gotten the book that day and barely browsed through it for like a learning one shot. And that's why and then I did stuff like have them roll to detect traps because I had forgotten that section of the dungeoneering bit because it had been a few weeks since I had read Crowns at the time.
Okay.
But no, Crowns runs great. If you want a game that can, if you don't want to scare people with auto hit, because I can understand why, especially when knowing monsters have auto hits, some people are hesitant. A game with more customization than the average Into the Odd game offers you, I would say run Crowns. If you want to get into the Odd and you don't like auto hit, run Crowns.
Hmm.
If you
Yeah.
if you like more detailed settlement and dungeon systems and you don't want to play a mouse, play Crowns. Give
Yeah.
Reese Searles money so he can continue to develop season 2 and I can get more of whatever the fuck Season of Crows is giving us.
Oh yeah, and there's supplement stuff coming out. Has been coming out for a little bit, and
Hell
will
yeah.
continue to do so. And yeah, no, if you are going to run crowns, I think there's still some neat stuff in here to even take from it or be inspired by.
Yeah, like an actual functional GM system. Oscar, you fucking hack. I'm bad at writing GM systems.
Hmm. So with that, before this becomes a 6-hour podcast,
First 6 hour episode is on a 44-page game. Look forward to our episode on a 600-page game where it's 5 minutes.
mhm.
That'll be the Pathfinder 2e. It's Pathfinder 2e. You already know if you don't like it.
Okay, we we should wrap it up.
Yeah, no, we're wrapping it up. So thank you for joining us today as we looked at Crowns. Join us next time for more indie tabletop discussion and design. I've been Oscar C. Tango, and joining me has been Sun Gone.
You can find me at sungone_ on Twitter, or at sungone at other places that aren't Twitter and not burning down. Sun on Start Playing and Sungone on itch.io.
And you can find me at Stranded TTRPG on Hive, You can find me as Oscar C. Tango on startplaying.games, and you can find me as Stranded Publishing on itch.io. You can find all of those links in the description, and remember, don't be afraid to adventure beyond the dragon.